We'll be talking in just a minute about what the atheists always talk about, peer-reviewed and accredited schools. That's just a rabbit we're going to chase and hopefully get to the real topic of, could God have used evolution to create the world?
Oh, jeez. Kent Hovind, the father of the man who can't add 16 and 16 together.
16 times 2? 34.
Right, Eric, is on it again, trying to shoehorn evolution into explaining God. There's no way I can tackle this alone, so it's time to call in some reinforcements.
What's that, boy? Somebody needs help with a Kent Hovind collab. Don't worry, skeptic. I've got you covered.
Hello, I'm the Skeptic. I watch videos on YouTube that make extraordinary claims, whether that's evolution is fake or atheism is wrong, but mostly the claim that a god is real, and then explain why I don't accept their position. Before we start today's video, if this isn't your first Skeptic video, do the things with the buttons. That would be incredible. Also, a super thanks to those that hit super thanks in the last few videos. Elizabeth and Lars. Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe bestows many blessings your way. Leaf be upon you. I've seen Kent Hovind whack a few atheists now, and actually I stuck up for scimandan in a video in 2021, but there are a couple of YouTubers who love to jump back on Kent, and Atheist Junior is one of those folks.
Hello there, Atheist Junior here, your friend and humble narrator. Always happy to help somebody on a Kent Hovind collab video, because I know from experience that trying to make a video about Kent Hovind by yourself can be very exhausting, reviewing his content and having to listen to his voice endlessly. It's good to have somebody else there to sort of bear that burden, you know, kind of carry that cross. So there's nothing I would rather do than help a fellow atheist YouTuber dunk on Kent Hovind.
In this two-part video, you can find the other part on Atheist Junior's channel. The link is in the description.
We think evolution is the dumbest and most dangerous religion in the world. Religious cult. It's silly to believe that.
So the definition of a cult is a system of religious veneration or devotion directed at one object or figure, usually one person. Does that sound more like the scientific theory of evolution by natural selection or Dinosaur Adventureland run by Kent Hovind?
Right. That's not as tough to answer as you'd think. It also amazes me that the Hovinds think that atheism and evolution go hand in hand. They don't. They may live in the same town, but they're definitely not dating.
3 things I try to accomplish. Number 1, I want to strengthen your faith in the Word of God. We believe the Bible is absolutely true, cover to cover. Even the cover says Kent Hovind. We believe that part. I do anyway. Secondly, if you're not saved, we want to get you saved. And third, if you're saved and not doing much for the Lord, we're going to try to make you uncomfortable. Find something to do. There's a war going on, soldier. Pick up a weapon, do something. Shoot, take care of the wounded, do something.
If you're not saved, we want to save you. From what? Why does Kent make it sound like he cares in one breath, but in the next, like he's happy to go out and shoot folks? Either he does care and wants all people to be safe, in his definition of the word, or he wants to use physical violence to convince people of things.
Well, Kent, I can confidently assure you that you make people who aren't saved just as uncomfortable. And in your metaphor, what are the weapons? Who are the wounded? What does any of this mean? What war are you talking about? And finally, what is your problem with people who play video games? Leave us alone. You don't want the gamers to rise up against you, Kent Hovind.
Let's see, I want to hear the Lord say this at the end of my life. I want him to say, Kent, well done. What's he going to say about you? What has he given you and what are you doing with it? I'm a little worried. He's going to say, Kent, I gave you this much and you did this much. You know, what happened here? I'm working on it. Okay.
This is what Kent Hovind actually believes, that when he gets to heaven, God is going to look down on him and say, son, I gave you so much talent and intelligence. You only got 4 PhDs? 4? Why not more of them?
And why didn't they just say 1,000,000 games, 1,000,000,000, infinity, sky's the limit when you don't give a
What's more worrying is that you can get a PhD with a blatantly obvious grammatical error in the first sentence of your dissertation. As an evangelist, God has given me the opportunity to teach and preach the wonderful story of his wonderful creation. Well, I didn't realize God was an evangelist.
My husband asked if he had any annoying habits, and then he got all offended during the PowerPoint presentation. Today we're going to chase one rabbit about peer-reviewed, and we may only get to chase that rabbit. He's running pretty fast. If there's time, we're going to go on to another one, the real message. Could God have used evolution to create? They always talk about peer-reviewed journals. How many have heard them complain about that stuff? Why don't Hovind publish in a peer-reviewed journal? Stuff like that. Okay. Who is considered your peer? A peer is someone at your own level. If you're a 10th grader, other high school students are your peers. Peer comes from the Latin par, which means equal. On a par with. When you are on par with someone, you are their peer. What is peer review? The review process tries to ensure that only the highest quality research is published. Stop right there. Obviously, there's a flaw in the thinking. If your peers agree, then how do you get new research? How do you get anybody to change the status quo? Okay.
No, the problem is not with peer review. The problem is with your understanding of peer review. I mean, you just read the definition, and you're already misrepresenting it. The peer review process subjects an author's scientific research to the scrutiny of others who are experts in the same field, aka peers. Peer review is designed to address the validity, originality, and quality of articles before publication.
It's like when they confuse theory with scientific theory.
3 of my peers thought it would be cool to see if the hammer would fit in my mouth. How do you tell your mom you got a hammer stuck in your mouth and you can't get it out? How many of you ever did something dumb as a kid? Come on now, you know, okay.
Oh, this wordplay is annoying. If I keep saying the word peers, I'll convince the audience that it all means the same thing.
Well, when I was a kid, one time at daycare, I got a tambourine stuck on my head and they had to call the fire department to remove it. But that's not relevant. And this is irrelevant. I mean, these are children. This is not an example of peer review. These aren't scientists submitting an article for publication. But what would a Kent Hovind video be without wild misrepresentations of the topic that he's trying to debunk?
Oh, I really hope your tambourine story's true, AJ.
So is it true when I was in daycare, I got a tambourine stuck on my head?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
And they had to call the fire department?
Well, they couldn't get it off, so they didn't know what to do. So the fire department, they had some kind of grease they put on, and they eased it off your head.
Okay, I love you.
Love you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, that is gold. And your mum sounds like a sweet lady.
Peer review is the process by which experts in the subject area review an article and provide their feedback. Journals typically have between 1 and 3 reviewers. So they can publish an article if one person agrees with them. Well, duh, you can publish anything, okay? Not all scientists believe in evolution. A study by 33 scientists shows squid came to Earth from outer space on meteors. That was a comment on my channel. I said, it's peer reviewed, it's got to be true. 33 scientists agree.
Kent, are you going to get the definition right at any point in this video? That paper had 33 authors. So a paper has an author, and then it is submitted for peer review. The authors are not the peers.
I'm pretty sure that paper is only a fun look at a possibility and shouldn't be taken as fact. It's just a cool way of looking at how the universe could potentially influence changes here on Earth. If you don't believe that RNA from space rocks influenced Earth-based creatures' evolution, it doesn't suddenly mean that all evolutionary theory is debunked. Science isn't saying this is what happened. It's saying there's a small chance it could have happened. Let's explore it.
Alan Savoy, what is science? He did a great one. Google that one. Almost all things new to science and improved come from outside the peer-reviewed process. You can watch that video. I played it the other day. He said at the end, those classic, the brightest candle makers couldn't even think about electric light.
It doesn't surprise me that Alan Savoy would be critical of peer review because the peer review process has not been kind to him or his scientific claims, and he does not take criticism well, much like Kent Hovind. So I'm going to read some quotes from this article on sierraclub.org. Savoy's apostasy is based on a controversial idea that we need more cows, not fewer, grazing on the world's grasslands, prairies, and deserts, the arid and semi-arid 2/3 of Earth's land surface, where soil is especially susceptible to drying out and eroding as the climate warms and droughts worsen. This ruinous process is known as desertification and is estimated to be degrading an area the size of Pennsylvania worldwide each year. It ends with soil that is turned to dust. Savoy's big claim is that the science about desertification is wrong, notably the idea that cattle grazing always contributes to degradation in what he calls brittle landscapes. I'd come prepared with literature critical of his ideas and had been citing it. He rolled his eyes in exasperation and shook his head. Counter evidence I had been referencing says this: when there are too many cows in places with intermittent or little rain, where the vegetation is brittle and the soil fragile, the animals spell trouble. Overgrazing denudes the soil and produces erosion, which leads to a landscape where plants can't revive and grow. At least 8.4 billion acres on the planet are grazed, and 73% of that land is suffering from some form of land degradation, according to the International Journal of Biodiversity. The problem is perhaps worse across arid lands where plants evolved with almost no exposure to large grazers, such as in the mountainous west of the United States, where Savory happens to live. Since that initial study was conducted, Savory has faced a new wave of scrutiny. A group of US-based rangeland scientists, led by David Brisk, a professor in the Department of Ecosystem Science and Management at Texas A&M University, stated flatly that Savoy's method cannot green deserts or reverse climate change. Savoy's claims are not only unsupported by scientific information, but they are often in direct conflict with it. Brisk's study, published in the Journal of Society for Range Management in 2013, concluded, "We find all of Mr. Savoy's major claims to be unfounded." And one final quote from Savoy, "You'll find the scientific method never discovers anything." So yeah, I don't put much stock in anything that this guy says.
You took the words right out of my open circle.
He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. 3 of my peers thought it would be cool to see if we could all land in the same spot. Ooh.
Does Kent Hovind not know how to spell the word thought? This is the same guy who will get after atheists for making spelling mistakes in their comments, or P.Z. Myers for spelling the word whack wrong in his Whacking Atheists video. Hypocrite.
Also, that's the same person at different sections of their full, right?
Thou shalt not raise a false report, nor put thine hand with the wicked. Don't hang around wicked people, right? Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil. This is God giving Moses the commandments to give to the people. They came out of Egypt. They'd been slaves for a couple hundred years. God said, "Moses, I got a whole bunch of stuff I want to tell these people. We're going to build a whole new nation, the Jews." And he gave them the 10 Commandments in chapter 20, and now he's still talking about things that they need to learn. Don't follow a multitude to do evil. Matthew 7, enter in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be that go in thereat. Be not conformed to this world. It doesn't matter what the world thinks. What's truth? That's what I tell people in these debates. I don't care what the majority thinks. What's true? The majority's been wrong thousands of times down through history.
Yes, and then science determines where it went wrong and gives a more accurate description of what's happening. It seems a shame to keep pointing back to hundreds and thousands of years ago when we have a more accurate understanding of things today, thanks to the resources and understanding now available to us.
This is coming from the same person who will argue that Christianity is true because the Bible is the world's best-selling book, okay? Or use the fact that a majority of people in the United States believe in creationism, whether or not it's young Earth or old Earth, to bolster his argument. He likes pointing out how science has been wrong in the past, like bloodletting. Well, Kent, how do you think that science self-corrects itself and improves? Through peer review.
They will not endure sound doctrine. Paul warned Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 4. They shall turn away their ears from the truth and shall be turned unto fables like evolution. I added that part. Adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that friendship of the world is enmity with God? He instructed me that I should not walk in the way of this people. The Lord spake unto me with a strong hand. Yeah. Hitler and his peers reviewed plans to invade Russia. Didn't they review plans to have concentration camps where 230,000 children died, as well as, 6 million other people? It was all peer reviewed. Taliban peer reviews their plans, how to take over the world and kill anybody who won't join them, right?
And I'm shocked. Are you adding to the word of God? I don't think the KJV mentions the word evolution. And seriously, the Taliban peer reviewed their acts of terrorism before carrying them out? Okay, well, then the Inquisition and the Crusades were peer-reviewed. The KKK was peer-reviewed. Anders Breivik peer-reviewed his acts before he killed 60 people. This is ridiculous. This is obviously warping the definition of peer review because you want to try and demonize it and demonize scientists. And I'm not going to let you get away with it. Not on my watch.
We could be peers of Kent's in that we're human and talk about evolution sometimes. We could then say we don't accept anything of what he says, and by his definition, we'd be right. So this could just get very awkward.
Accredited universities in Iraq. All those universities are accredited. They have 62 more rows of them. I bet if a student or if a teacher, either one, got up in class and said, I don't believe Muhammad was a prophet. If they did that in a Iraqi university, what would happen to him? Hung or head cut off or something. Stalin and his peers approved many things that were evil. Why did Stalin suppress religion in the Soviet Union? Joseph Stalin became leader in 1922. As part of his regime, Lenin's successor, Stalin, tried to enforce atheism on the Republic. The new socialist man, Stalin argued, was an atheist one. And atheism depends completely upon evolution.
Does Kent just not listen to anything? I'm sure he's been told that the origin of species has nothing to do with atheism. It's simply the position that atheists aren't convinced by the claims that there's a God. You technically could be an atheist and still think that a robot civilization grew creatures in a test tube and released them into the wild. You just don't believe there's a God, Kent.
Wow, how many wrong things can you say in the span of a couple seconds? No, if you said that in Iraqi college, you would not instantly be executed. Kent, I know you don't know this, but not every person who lives in Iraq is a Muslim, nor are they an ISIS terrorist. And atheism is not based on evolution. No matter how much you lie about it in your seminar, The Dangers of Evolution, doesn't make it true.
You have to have an explanation. How did we get here? We're here. There's two choices. Somebody made the world or the world made itself.
So we have two fallacies here from Kent Hovind. The first is a false dichotomy. The two choices he presents are not the only two choices. And the second is conflating evolution with abiogenesis. Evolution is just the increase of biodiversity of animals on Earth, and abiogenesis is the origin of life on Earth.
Also, made itself sounds weird. Does he think that one day an early Earth sprouted some arms and started putting things into places? Of course, that false dichotomy is something that comes up a lot with theists. If the Earth didn't form by natural means, that doesn't mean a god must have done it. Like you said, AJ.
And the only option running for the world made itself is evolution.
Evolution is the scientific description given to explaining the diversifying and changes in species over time. Evolution has nothing to do with how universes, planets, and galaxies are formed. That's astrophysics, Kent.
Yeah, the formation of the Earth has nothing to do with the evolution of life on Earth. The Earth formed when asteroids, dust, and gas was orbiting around the early sun, and gravity drew these things closer and closer together until it formed a planetesimal. And then this process just kept going until you have the Earth and the early moon. But that's not evolution. You're conflating the formation of the Earth with evolution by natural selection.
From 1928 till World War II, the dictator, that would be Stalin, shuttered the churches, means he closed the doors, synagogues and mosques, and ordered the killing and imprisonment of thousands of religious leaders in an effort to eliminate the concept of God. Why? Stalin tried to stamp out religion in the Soviet Union. He led a uniquely brutal campaign against religion and religious leaders. Stalin was the ultimate atheist and evolutionist.
If Stalin was the ultimate evolutionist, then I have two questions. Why did he command all copies of On the Origin of Species to be burned? And why did he appoint somebody in Lysenko to be the czar of agriculture if Lysenko vehemently disbelieved in all of Darwin's theories about plant growth and how to grow food and evolution? Answer me that.
Stalin may not have believed in a god, but that doesn't make all non-believers just like Stalin. Just like all theists, and I'm not talking about anyone in particular here, but not all theists own dinosaur theme parks, go to prison for domestic violence, or misrepresent peer review. That tarring would be completely unfair.
It ties together, folks. When the era of communism rule began in 1917, religion was seen as a hindrance to the socialist society. Karl Marx, the co-author of the Communist Manifesto, declared, "Communism begins where atheism begins." Joseph Stalin, second leader of the Soviet Union, tried to enforce militant atheism on the Republic. The new socialist man, Stalin argued, was an atheist one, free of religious chains that helped to bind him to class oppression. From 28 to World War II, when put in some restrictions finally. People don't understand how important this evolution battle is. It starts in kindergarten. They give the kids a dinosaur or a book about dinosaurs. I don't have one here. What's the first sentence in the book always say? Millions of years ago. The propaganda starts in kindergarten. In pre-kindergarten. I'm sick of it.
It's not propaganda when it can be demonstrated that there are, indeed, millions of years to look back at.
You're sick of it, or you are mad because you want to get to those same kids first?
Satan, for years, has used dinosaurs to teach kids the lie of evolution. I think Christians should use them. They're God's missionary lizards. Use them to teach people the truth of creation. You can reach kids who can't even read yet.
Side note, propaganda is what British people do when they want to look at something really well.
We're going to do something about it here at Dinosaur Adventureland. God made the dinosaurs with Adam and Eve. Mao Zedong and his peers approved stealing all the food and starving millions of people. He killed 70 million people. Guess what? In communist China today, there's a whole long list, 938 accredited universities. I bet they teach communism, don't they? I bet they don't teach anything about creation, do they? Say it's accredited, the peers have reviewed it. North Korea has all kinds of colleges and universities. 24 more rows here, so 27 universities that are peer-reviewed in North Korea. You think they teach anything against communism in North Korea? You think they teach anything against evolution in North Korea? What would happen if I spoke at the university in North Korea? Peer-reviewed? I'm not impressed with that. Vlad the Impaler and his peers approved killing people, 20% of the population. He would take his enemies, get a long pole sticking up out of the ground, sharpen the end, stick them on it butt first, and make it come out their mouth and let them watch them squirm and die. He impaled people, and by the thousands, just to watch them die. The guy was a absolute demonically possessed moron, okay? Generals agreed with him. Yeah, boss, let's do it to that guy. Okay. Saddam insane, dictator in Iraq. Let's see. His policies made the way for the death of not less than 2 million people. Chemical attacks, eye gouging, beatings, severe shocks. He recorded several tortures and deaths to watch them later. He was found guilty of crimes against humanity and was hanged in 2006, finally. But hey, while he was general, his peers reviewed it and approved it, didn't they?
So you think Saddam Hussein, the dictator, had to submit his ideas to peer review before he carried them out? That's not what a dictator does. Dictators just do whatever they want. Kind of the definition of being a dictator.
Exactly. This constant misrepresentation is frustratingly annoying. It doesn't cement Kent's position, it just exposes how little he really understands about anything.
Famous people who never went to college. They didn't get a peer-reviewed degree, did they? A lot of famous people, real famous people, billionaires, never went. Why a college degree is worthless. They're going to brainwash you. Bill Gates, billionaire college dropouts. Presidents without college degrees. List of presidents without college degrees. George Washington, James Monroe, Jackson, Van Buren, Harrison, Taylor. Wow. Abe Lincoln. It's not important that you get a peer-reviewed degree. Semmelweis, the Hungarian physician who pioneered the use of antiseptics, he said he was appalled because I think it was 20 or 30% of the patients that came into the hospital died after surgery of any kind. He said, guys, I think we need to put a policy in where you have to wash your hands. That was it. Wash your hands. After the doctor would perform an autopsy, cutting up a dead body to learn more anatomy, then he would just brush the dirt off and go in and deliver mama's baby. And most of them died. They couldn't figure it out. He said, guys, they didn't know about germs. They didn't have microscopes. He said, how about everybody wash their hands and then go do that? Expelled him from several hospitals. I forget what all happened to the poor guy. Finally, I think he went insane because he knew what was right, but the peers didn't agree. Yeah, okay. Is Princeton accredited? What does that mean, accredited? It's regionally accredited. Oh, what does that mean? The Middle States Commission on Higher Education. This accreditation indicates that a voluntary non-governmental association has found the university promotes educational excellence with diverse missions, student populations, and resources. Classes began for Princeton with 10 students, young men, who met for class at in the parlor of Reverend Jonathan Dickinson. Is Princeton accredited? Well, it depends what you mean.
I'm not really sure what relevance famous people not going to college has. No famous people are asking you to kill babies to live with them in an afterlife. This is just to muddy the waters to make a very weird point even weirder. It doesn't get us anywhere closer to proving the existence of a creator or theistic evolution or whatever.
I can give you one example of the difference between an unaccredited school and one that's accredited. Usually, when you submit a dissertation, when you're trying to get a PhD, you can have between 3 and up to 5 people reviewing it. But Kent only had one person review his dissertation at Patriot Bible College, and it was the president of the school.
How many teachers spoke out against Hitler in Germany, you think? A few at first, yeah. Stalin had any dissenters rounded up and imprisoned or executed. How many teachers in Russian schools spoke out against Stalin or communism? North Korea still has dissenters rounded up and imprisoned or executed. They're going on right now, but it's peer-reviewed. All their professors say it's okay to do that. Anybody who doesn't agree with communism, shoot them. Yep, that'll work. Round them up, execute them, lock them up. You guys get so bent out of shape, the atheists do, over peer-reviewed and accredited. You need to stop and think, okay? Get outside the box.
Let me get this straight. You're comparing Stalin's communist government or Hitler's Germany, who had anybody who disagreed or dissented with them rounded up and imprisoned or executed. You're comparing that with peer review, where scientific authors submit their research papers to their peers who disagree with them on purpose? This comparison makes no sense at all. It's ridiculous.
Exactly, AJ.
Peer-reviewed. Yeah, right. And you dissent? Oh, yeah, we'll torture you till you confess, until you agree with us. It happens all the time. How many teachers in China speak out against communism or teach on creation? Aren't my videos subtitled in Chinese? A couple different languages? A couple different Chinese dialects, I think. And they're going around. We get stuff sneaked out of there, brought out of there, saying, hey, your videos are making a difference in China. Keep it up, okay? They have dissenters rounded up and imprisoned or executed. Muslim countries still have dissenters rounded up and imprisoned or executed. Is it possible in Muslim countries to speak out against Islam or Muhammad? Hey, it's peer-reviewed and it's accredited university. Oh, yeah. Round them up, line them up, shoot them all. Yep, okay. Happens by the hundreds. Muslim countries still do this. Line them up, kill them. Okay? Dissenters are rounded up and imprisoned or executed. Where do Christians face the most persecution? There it is. North Korea is the worst. The Fulani Muslim herdsmen massacred Christians in Nigeria. They dared to not, go along with the program. Weren't peer-reviewed. Universities in America don't beat or imprison or execute dissenters yet.
What Kent could do, and this is just constructive criticism now, but what he could do to make better arguments is not jumble stuff up in such a way that he makes very little to no sense. This is now getting so off topic that it's becoming farcical. You don't get your point across by confusing your opponent. Slow down, Kent. Slow down.
Oh my gosh, Skeptic, did you know about this? That American universities are planning to start imprisoning, torturing, and executing people who don't believe in evolution? And Kent, the word you were looking for was smuggled. They would be smuggled in or out of China. Although if the situation is as dire as you claim, how is it that people in China are able to watch your DVDs at all? What is it, like North Korea, where they're huddled under a blanket with a TV in front of them, watching Lies in the Textbook, and then they hear a banging on the door? You're watching Lies in the Textbook. To the gulag for you. No, this is more fear-mongering, trying to demonize scientists, science, and peer review, and it's getting really old. Is this the only argument you have, Kent Hovind? Or is it just going to be this one repeated over and over again for the rest of the video? It's going to be the same argument, isn't it? Well, I guess me and Skeptic better get comfortable.
Oh, yeah. Let me pull up a chair.
But they sure fire teachers and fail students if they disagree. Michael Denny, Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas. Michael Denny, Associate Professor of Biology. This is the third criteria for receiving a letter of recommendation from Dr. Denny to pursue a career in medicine. He taught biology, did all the programs, answered all the questions, and wanted to get them to approve him for a doctor. The university said, if you set up an appointment to discuss the writing of a letter of recommendation, I will ask you, how do you think human species originated? What does that have to do if a guy's qualified to be a doctor?
Yes, of course doctors and public health officials should have a competent understanding of the history of human evolution, aka paleoanthropology. I'll give you one example. Geneticists have been studying fruit flies for decades, not just because they have a short generation time, but because the genes and brains of fruit flies are so similar to humans that we can actually learn about curing Alzheimer's disease from them.
Q, well, where are the transition fossils of fruit flies and humans? Eye roll.
What does that have to do with it? But in the university, that's important. You've got to believe in evolution. If you cannot truthfully and forthrightly affirm a scientific answer to this question, by the way, none of you atheists can give a scientific answer to that question. You can give a religious answer. You believe we came from a monkey of some kind.
More Kent Hovind misrepresentations. I don't believe we came from a monkey. I accept that, given the evidence, humans and other apes all share a common ancestor. There's nothing religious about it. That's like saying it's religious to think my wife's going to bring me a cup of tea in the morning. Stop trying to twist things so you can try it with the gotcha moments. It just doesn't work.
But Skeptic, trying to spring gotcha moments on atheists is all Kent Hovind really has here. You see, there's a quote from Aaron Ra about Kent that I really like. He says that it's not about truth, it's about appearances. So it doesn't matter if you and me are convinced by Kent's arguments. What matters to him is that the people in the room with him, or the people at Dinosaur Adventureland, think that he had a good, witty retort to what was just said.
If you cannot give a scientific answer, you should not seek my recommendation for admittance to further education in the biomedical sciences. In other words, we're going to stop you from getting a degree. Really? Why do I ask this question? Let's consider the situation of one wishing to enter medical school. Whereas medicine is historically rooted first in the practice of magic and later in religion, modern medicine is an endeavor that springs from the sciences, biology first among these. The central unifying principle of biology is the theory of evolution, which includes both micro and macro evolution, and which extends to all species. How can someone who does not accept the most important theory in biology expect to properly practice in a field that is so heavily based on biology? It's hard to imagine how this can be, but it's easy to imagine how physicians who ignore or neglect the Darwinian aspects of medicine, this is Michael Denny preventing somebody from getting a recommendation letter, can make bad clinical decisions. The current crisis in antibiotic resistance is a result of such decisions. Because they don't believe in evolution, now we got a crisis.
So back when Michael Denny still had this policy at Texas Tech saying that he wouldn't write a letter of recommendation for students who couldn't affirm a scientific definition of the history of human evolution, there were still 100 other faculty members that students could have gone to for such a letter. Writing a letter of recommendation is voluntary. It's at the discretion of the teacher if they think the student deserves it. Also, he no longer has this policy. I noticed that Kent Hovind's slides didn't mention that.
It seems that he definitely likes to only include things that add a little bit of, I guess we can call it credibility, but in the loosest terms, to what he's trying to say. Whew, that was a lot in a short amount of time. Well, it turns out that kicking Kent is a lot of fun. I'm not entirely sure what his point was in the video, maybe just to see how much word salad one man can throw out in 40-something minutes. Did he even demonstrate that a god used evolution to create the world, or was it weird distraction techniques that actually got nowhere? I'm glad you were here for this, AJ. Where can we find you?
Wow, that was probably the most thorough kicking of Kent Hovind I've done ever. Thank you to Skeptic for collabing with me and all of his viewers. Please subscribe to my channel. I usually stream about once a week. Yeah, I usually don't do pre-recorded videos like this, but I sort of made an exception, so I'm learning as I go here. But yeah, I hope you guys will check out my channel and check out my other videos. If you like seeing Kent Hovind get whacked, then I've got a ton of content like that. So check it out and give me a follow.
Find the other part of this video on Atheist Junior's channel. Go and check that out and let us know what you thought of the video in the section below. Let's skeptic this as a successful Kent kicking. A big thank you to this month's ticks on Patreon: MISM, Addy Rockart, the Enixes, Travis, and the absolute lunatic Jimmy, as well as all the base ticks. You can become a supporter on Patreon too at patreon.com/theskeptic. The link is in the description, along with links to all my other socials. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. From me, the Skeptic, stay safe, keep thinking logically, and ask questions. Skepticism is the first step towards truth. See you next Saturday.